G'day mate, 40 here. So I've interviewed thousands of people in my life, and one thing I notice is that everybody hurts. Like, everybody is sensitive to slights. Everybody feels pain when that which they love and value is diminished. So if you love your kids, you're dramatically increasing your vulnerability in life, because if a girl breaks up with your son, right, you feel bad. If your daughter gets fired, you feel bad. If your kid struggles in a class or is bullied, you feel bad. If your kid falls down and bloodies his knee, normally you feel bad. Now, my dad, somehow, he didn't feel bad if I'd fall down and bloody my knee. He'd yank me up by the arm and announce to everybody around me, he's fine, he's fine. But that's because my father loved things more than his kids, such as his public standing and his reputation. And so it was important to him that we didn't show pain, and that we were resilient, and that we were masters over our feelings. But if you love the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to feel pain when the Cowboys lose. Like, if you love your car, you're going to feel bad. You're going to feel pain when it gets scratched. Like, if you love your garden, right, and gets damaged by a storm, you're going to feel bad. Like, everybody hurts. Everybody cries sometime. So when I think about my dad, who'd always proclaim, and people around him, his supporters, would back him up, it's all criticism would just flow off him like water off a duck's back. Or you hear Dennis Prager and Julie Hartman, his YouTube co-host, talking about, criticism doesn't bother Dennis. I don't let it bother me, says Dennis. It does. Like, you can viscerally see it bothering him when he's getting more of it, depending who it's from. If it's from people within the Jewish community, of course that hurts more than people in an out group. I remember when a variety of conservative rabbis signed a letter condemning Dennis Prager for his stand against same-sex marriage, and I think calling him homophobic. And that really hurt Dennis. You could see the pain when he came to shul that Sabbath. He was rocked. And guess what? Dennis's best friends, right, they felt the pain, and they were indignant on his behalf, and they were outraged. So we all have things that we invest in outside of ourselves. And when those things, they become part of our hero system, normally that's part of our community. So if you're part of the Armenian community, and the Armenian community, suffers a loss, you hurt. If you're an Orthodox Jew and you think, Orthodox Jews are the greatest, and you see, a bunch of Orthodox Jews convicted for some white-collar crime, or there's some legal setbacks against Orthodox Jews, say in Israel, or there's some change in the economy and some segment of Orthodox Jewry is really struggling, you feel pain. If there's a put down of traditional Orthodox practices or ways of organizing community, the Orthodox way of life, the divine nature of the origins of the Torah and the whole Orthodox Jewish tradition, any put downs, any criticisms, any cuts or slights to that, you feel pain. If you're a fair dinkum Christian, you believe that Jesus Christ is the only path to salvation, any claim to the contrary, that's going to cause you viscerally pain. Wow, isn't this beautiful? We've got these, flowers. Spring has sprung, bro. And these flowers are just descending upon me. So this is just pure delusion, right? That you can love and be invested in things and have a hero system and then not hurt. So California, if you get most of your sense of community from being a Californian, right? If much of California falls off the map because of an earthquake, or is damaged by floods or fires or droughts, or the economy in California turns down, or it develops in a very nasty budget deficit, right? You're going to feel pain. If you believe that marriage is a heterosexual institution and you have to encounter same-sex marriage, whether it's on the news or in person, you're going to feel pain. If you believe that the United States military should be a heterosexual institution, you're going to feel pain at the inclusion of LGBTQ. Right? If you believe that God's greatest revelation to humanity is the Seventh-day Adventist Church, or the the truth as articulated to the Prophet Muhammad or the Mormon Church, like any detriments, any put downs, any suffering by these entities in which you invest yourself, you're going to feel pain. Like if you love your motorbike gets dented or it stops working as well as you would like, you're going to feel pain. Like if you love a tree, and then that tree gets blown down or damaged in a storm or in wind, you're going to feel pain. Like if you love a particular actor or actress and they endure a setback, you're going to feel pain. If you're a big booster of Los Angeles and Los Angeles has some setbacks, you're going to feel pain. So everybody is constantly hurt. Everybody's vulnerable. Everybody's so vulnerable in so many different ways. The more you love, the more you're going to feel vulnerable. I miss talking to Casey. I miss having Casey on my show. I miss Dennis Dale on my show. I miss having Kevin Michael Grace on my show. I miss Kyle on my show. Who's that bloke out of Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma? I mean, he was hilarious. Right? Josh Randall, man. We haven't had Josh Randall around for over a year. I miss Josh Randall, not just on my show, but over the phone and in text message, like as part of my life. Like when people leave the community of this show, it's a loss, man. And if Elliot Blatt has a sharp criticism of me or a put down of me, or Glib Medley does, or Laponius, right? It stings. Doesn't mean they shouldn't do it. Doesn't mean that it's not for my good. Doesn't mean that overall it will benefit from me. But this notion that criticism and slights and setbacks just water off a duck's back, like we're just constantly getting pricked by arrows. Right? Everybody hurts. Everybody's getting wounded. Everybody's vulnerable. Like the more you love, the more vulnerable you are. The more invested you get. If you get invested in beautiful flowers, right? When the flowers go away, you'll miss them. If you're invested in the trees, right? If you're invested in the sunshine, if you're invested in particular ocean currents and waves, and then that particular current and wave goes away, you're going to really miss it. Surroundings are a bit gay. Well, if you think that your surroundings should be really hetero, then gay surroundings are going to cause you pain. Now, luckily, I'm not bigoted that way. I'm not homophobic, so I just see opportunities to love, bro. Who do you love? That's what matters. Who do you love? But when you love anything, man, any negation of it is going to cause you pain. Get your eyesight checked out, man. I'm just embracing my humanity, and I'm embracing your humanity in a totally heterosexual way right now. But I just don't buy this, doesn't hurt me, doesn't bother me when everything that I care about and everything that I love gets damaged. Doesn't bother me when I'm put down. I mean, Dennis Prager, if you'd read in, say, Los Angeles Magazine, a description of himself as pompous, like you'll see the difference on his face. You can see the damage that it does to people when there's a particularly sharp criticism. So if I'm reading the chat and there's some very sharp, accurate criticisms in the chat, like you'll see the ripple across my face, right? You can't have a thought, right? You cannot have a thought without it rippling across your face. Now, it may be subtle. Women tend to be particularly good at noticing that. As a kid, I never liked the sentiment behind the remark, I don't care what others think of it. Yeah, it's bizarre, it's antisocial, it's a lie. Now, some people with, say, avoidant attachment try to minimize it and try to deaden that part of themselves, but then they just get incredibly warped. If you have people with avoidant attachment in your life, it's not a lot of fun. And if you have people with anxious attachment in your life, they're exhausting. So when I've gone through periods of like anxious attachment, sometimes I'd get up at 2 a.m. and check if so-and-so was still my friend on Facebook. So we're always, in large part, relying on external cues as well as internal cues. about where we stand with other people, where we stand in community, where we stand in the workplace, where we stand with our wives, family, lovers, strangers, acquaintances, members of our church, synagogue, members of our profession, educational institution. Like we're constantly reading their cues. Do they have more or less respect for us, more or less love for us? Are we getting shunned? Getting shunned is incredibly painful. I remember I said something inappropriate at a Reform synagogue. I said something to the cantor, I think to Nathan Lamb, about how people don't like listening to cantorial music. And everyone I was sitting with, like almost all my friends at Stephen S. Wise Temple, they all got up and moved away from me. Like 12, 15, 20 people, who I felt quite close to, they all got up and moved away from me because they didn't want to associate with what I said. I mean, I just got shunned. I mean, incredibly painful. So, yeah, you can be brave, but if you lose connections or your social standing, your social status, your prestige, right? Those are like real wounds, just like being, hacked at with a sword.